Hi, welcome to In Air's Kitchen. So it's Monday, I think this is episode 23 maybe, and we've been doing sweets on Monday, so if you go back, you can find the very first episode was brownies, which are brownies made with fresh ground wheat, which is really, really yummy. And then we did a recipe for wacky cake, which is an old family recipe from my grandma, but it's a Depression era cake. Which is a lot of fun with a broiled frosting. We did a pineapple upside down cake, and we did chocolate chip cookies. We also did chocolate chip cookies with fresh ground wheat. And if you're new to fresh ground wheat, I think those are really great places to start. We spent all last week on bread, so all the episodes last week were on making sourdough bread, and we also did a quicker bread. And we ended the week making pizza, which was a lot of fun. I've been seeing pictures people are sending me of breads that they've been making at home. It seems like some people are having some incredible successes, which is really fun. There's some questions coming in about starters, and I thought I'd talk a little bit about starters this week. I've got Clementine with me here today because we're going to do fluff. And Clem made cannelé, which are a fancy little French pastry. And she had a bunch of leftover egg whites, and I came in the other evening and she said, taste this, and she just decided to make fluff with those. I didn't know how she knew how to make fluff, but she told me she had a recipe and it called for corn syrup and she couldn't find any. She doesn't know I have a little bit hidden at the back of the cupboard, but instead she substituted honey, which is really fun. And I'm hoping that part of what we're doing with the show is giving people some inspiration to try some things at home. You should all be using your kitchens. You can make really nutritious food that's really delicious, and you can save a lot of money. And have a lot of fun doing it. So I hope everybody looks at this as a little bit of a playground and feels excited enough to try to make something themselves. And I think that one of the things we're learning a little bit about is substitutions, and also serendipity and fun little happy experiments. If Clem had asked me, can I substitute something for corn syrup, I would have said, no way, can't do it. And I think, what made you think of honey?
Well, I thought it was like consistency.
Yeah, sort of goopy?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have thought you could do it, but Clem did it anyway, and what came out of that is like the best tasting fluff I've ever had in my life. We did a little short last week when we had some fresh bread because our house is like a bread garden right now. We just have loaves and loaves and loaves of bread, and Blue had an idea after one of the shows to put some peanut butter and fluff on one of the bread. And it was really, really good. So we made a little fluffer nutter at home, and then we had people asking, well, where did that fluff come from and how do you do that? And it also ties in with this week. So last week was all bread. This week we're doing a number of different things. It may not seem like there's much of a theme to them, but the theme is this. We are in the worst time of the year to use local ingredients in this part of the country. So at this time, most of the root vegetable stores have gone bad or run out. And we don't really have fresh vegetables yet. We have spring dug parsnips if you can find a farmer who has those. And otherwise, we're waiting for a little while before we have fresh vegetables. I think as it becomes spring, everyone thinks that there's going to be vegetables everywhere and greens everywhere. But the reality is that doesn't kick in until a little bit later on. So this is a hard time of year to eat locally. That said, I'm a big proponent of finding ways to get our dollars to people that are working and living around us and making the soils healthier and making a food ecosystem. And it turns out that Clementine's fluff does it really nicely. So you can use some honey that if you keep bees, you might be lucky enough to have your own honey. If not, you can definitely buy honey from somebody locally. We have bees, but we didn't harvest their honey last year because it was a new hive and we decided to leave the honey for them over the winter. I think it might have been a harsh winter, but it wasn't really. But this honey we bought at the local Agway store, and they carry it from local producers that buy supplies from the Agway store and then sell honey there. So this is the honey we have, and these eggs are from our chickens. And we just got some new chickens this year, so there've been requests to see those on camera, so we'll get to that. But we just got a bunch of new chickens. They're not laying yet. They won't lay until maybe October or so. But we do have 4 older chickens, and 2 of those chickens are laying, so we do get some eggs from our chickens. And then you also need white sugar.
Yeah. And cream of tartar.
Yeah. And so before we jump into the recipe, Clem, I just wanted to show people a few more things. I'm like building up the suspense and tension because I know everybody's really excited to see the fluff, and it's really delicious. But I wanted to open up this package that just arrived in the mail. Would you grab me some scissors?
Sure. What is it?
Well, I haven't opened it yet, but I have an idea of what it is because on the front here it says 3 sulfur, 1 Vermont cranberry, and 1 bumblebee. Do you know what that might be? Any ideas? So I think those of you who've been watching, if you go back to the episode where we interviewed Charlie Bear, and so this would have been the first week, and we did a bunch of beans. And Charlie Bear sells beans to Clover, and we love what he does. He's one of the only farmers in New England that farms beans and sells them, and it's a really beautiful thing to be able to buy beans that are grown here. And he farms a lot of heirloom varieties. And when I was asking him what his very favorite bean is, he said sulfur beans. I had never heard of these in my life, and he said that they are that they've got a terrible name, but it's because of the color, and I can sort of see that right now. But he said he would send me some, so I'm really excited to see these. You know, I've never seen these in the places that sell Charlie's beans, and I wonder if people don't buy them because they're called sulfur. But he said they don't taste like sulfur or anything. It's just the color of them, and he loves how they cook up. So I am super excited to get these. He said he would send me some. That's awesome. So we're gonna have some sulfur beans. Look how beautiful those are. And some bumblebee beans. Whoa, look at those. That's cool. I've never seen those before. Wow, that's really neat. And we're getting our garden going. And Charlie said that you can try planting the beans and you may have luck. So we may even try to plant some of these in our own garden. There's some Vermont cranberries. So thank you to Charlie. I don't know if you're watching. We're asking Charlie what he likes to make of the beans, and he likes to make chili. And we then made an episode to show you guys how to make chili at home, which is one of my favorite things too. But there's a lot of beautiful things you can do with the beans, and there's a lot of really simple preparations. They're super nutritious, and they all have slightly different textures and flavors, and they're really, really beautiful. So thank you, Charlie. Really excited to try these out. There's another thing that came in the mail. This one I already opened up, but we ordered from Plymouth Grist Mill, and I'll put this link online for Charlie Bear and for Plymouth Grist Mill. And this is popcorn. So they're doing a really cool thing, which they're working with farmers in New England to try to help encourage the farmers to grow heirloom varieties of corn. So these were grown by Lazy Acres Farm in North Hadley, Massachusetts, which is pretty close to where I grew up. And so, you know, this didn't cost very much. I think this was like $3.50. But it is a really neat thing that, you know, when you buy from somebody like Plymouth, some of the money that I spent on these is going to support what they do at the grist mill, and some of this money is going to support Lazy Acre Farms. And I love supporting both of those, and we get to eat some yummy popcorn. So we're going to make popcorn on Thursday. I think that if you order popcorn today and you want to follow along live, you should probably, you may have it in by then, because I just ordered this on Thursday last week, maybe Friday, and it already arrived. So if you get it as quickly as I do, you might be ready to go by the time we do popcorn later this week. And while you're at it, you may order some samp from Plymouth Grist Mill as well. So samp is an old-fashioned kind of New England grits. So I would encourage you to go ahead and place an order for both those things if you want to follow along this week with some of the recipes we're doing. And so tomorrow we're going to do cheesy grits, which is a Clover favorite. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to teach you how to make pesto. And pesto is one of my favorite things because you can make it with all sorts of greens. Anything from kale, obviously basil. And we're going to use something called garlic mustard, which is a foraged ingredient. So we're actually going to go pick that outside. And we're going to make pasta at home too. So we're going to have pasta and pesto. Maybe we'll make some garlic bread with some sourdough bread. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So that's going to be on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we're going to be doing popcorn. And on Friday, it's Violet's birthday, so there's going to be no show. All right, Clementine, that was a lot of talking I just did. Do you want to take over and walk us through fluff making?
Okay. So you have to separate the egg whites from the yolk first. And I like to do it where I crack them all into a bowl and then use my hands to take the yolk out. You can also use the shell, but I prefer to use my hands.
So that's why you got this little jar all ready to
Yes.
go? Clever.
Yeah. I think my hands are just softer. There's less chance of it breaking the yolk.
What are we going to do with those yolks?
I don't know. I don't know.
Didn't we separate them for the wacky cake?
The wacky cake? Whole egg in the wacky cake.
Or
Yeah.
the,
Custard uses egg yolks.
the candies color.
Yeah. Maybe we should make more candies.
And then I have a teaspoon of tartar. Fluff it up.
So if you don't have a stand mixer at home, you could use a hand mixer. But if you don't have a hand, like an electric hand mixer, it may be pretty hard to do this. Not impossible, but if anybody's ever beaten egg whites by hand, it takes a lot of fun. So what are we going to do while those are beating there, Clem?
Well, they don't beat for very long. Then you add 2 tablespoons of sugar into that when it's already a little foamy.
And this sugar, most of the time I'm a big fan of buying organic ingredients for a whole lot of reasons. And when we buy sugar, we usually buy organic sugar. But there are a few baking recipes that I think are really hard to pull off without like a white granulated sugar. And this is one of them. I think that you probably want to have just a simple white granulated sugar. If you try to use some of the less refined sugars, you may just have a lot of trouble getting this to work. And if you guys didn't catch it, this is cream of tartar. If you bake a bunch, you probably have some of this in your cupboard. If not, it's something you can buy at grocery stores. It's with the spices in the grocery store, and it's an ingredient that's often added to egg whites, give them a little more volume and stability.
And now it's time to add in the 2 tablespoons of sugar.
So Clem did a really nice thing when she measured that. She's measuring a dry ingredient, and so she filled it up a little bit over the spoon, and then she used her finger to scrape off the excess so that it was exactly at the same level as the spoon. That way she knows she's getting the exact amount she wants.
And now it's going to mix till it's like soft beaks, which is like going to keep flops a little bit when the egg whites almost there, I think.
That's Snorri on the ground. He loves clementine, so he just decided, I think, he'd park himself right at our feet. We don't have a very big house, but we have 2 big dogs, and they like to hang out in the kitchen, so we're often sort of tripping over them a little bit.
There you go. So it's not like totally stiff. There's still a little bit of it. But soft beaks.
And one of the tricks my grandma showed me, or my mother showed me about this, is when you pick this up, if you pick it up straight and then you turn it, it'll fall a little bit instead of staying straight out. And that's soft, and then if it stays straight out, it's stiff. All right, what are we doing next?
Now it's 2/3 cup of sugar.
And this is a different episode because I'm learning too. I haven't made this recipe. Clementine did this without me, so I'm sort of curious to follow along with everybody else.
And this is just sugar, and then it's 1/3 cup of water too.
Okay.
And then the honey will go in here as well.
Somebody had a question. They
Yeah.
just wanted to hear how much sugar again.
So it was 2/3 a cup of sugar,
Yeah.
2 tablespoons
2
in the
tablespoons
egg whites,
in the egg whites, and then 2.
and then 2/3 cup of sugar in the pot here. So I'll just go through the ingredients really quickly so everybody can hear them. So 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar, 3 egg whites. That went in and was beat together, and then 2 tablespoons of sugar were added to this. separately, she's putting 2/3 cup of sugar in a pot on the stove with 3/4 cup of honey and 1/3 cup of water. And that's all gonna cook up on the stove.
Yeah. So this is 3/4 of honey. And scooping.
You want a spatula spoon?
Sure.
Here you go. Bees work really hard for that honey, so we have to get a little bit. I think most people probably don't know about this. I didn't know about it until we kept bees and I was learning more about it. But bees produce honey through fermentation as well. So we were talking a lot about fermentation last week as we were making sourdough starter, but the bees rely on bacteria in particular to help convert their saliva and pollen into honey, which is really fun, little funny fact. All right, so we're gonna heat this up with a thermometer on there.
Yeah, because we want it to get to softball candy stage, which is at 248 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm just watching for that.
So this is called a candy thermometer, and you may have one at home. If you don't, this is a really common sort of thermometer. It shouldn't cost more than a couple dollars. You can buy them at most grocery stores. You can also even buy them at convenience stores sometimes. You can you probably order them online. I've had this for a long time. I don't remember where I got it. Probably at a grocery store. And one thing you want to do with any thermometer is before you put it to use, you just want to check its operating temperature. In this case, it goes from 100 up to 400. So this is going to be safe at a relatively high temperature. But if you have a thermometer that goes up to 150, you wouldn't want to put it in this use because you're just going to blow it out. So,
Good.
yeah. The stream had a problem, but I think it should go back in gear.
It's at 100 right now. Waiting for it to heat up. And there's a label for 250 on this, but not 148. So I'm probably not getting exactly to 148, but when it's around like a little before 250, generally, it starts to like bubble.
So the stream just froze. Sorry, I was just saying that somebody's asking if you can make maple syrup with it instead of honey. I haven't tried, but I'm hoping someone does and let us know how it goes. I was just saying our neighbor's making a bunch of maple syrup candies lately. He was just telling us about that, which is like maple sugar candies, which I used to love when I was a kid. I've never tried to make those either, but he said they're really easy. I think you need to have some molds to make them in, but I have never really gotten into candy making. So how hot are we waiting for this to go to?
248 around, because there's not an exact marker on it. I just wait till it's like a little bit before 250, but
Yeah, and it's a little hard to see on this thermometer because it's a little bit old, but the different stages of the candy are marked on the candy thermometer. So can you make that out, Brookie? So you see they're labeled. So one of these here says S, which is and then H, and then SC, which is soft candy, HC, hard candy, and then CAR, which is caramel. So those are the zones, the temperature zones. And what's happening with sugar is that there's water in there right now. The water boils off at a lower temperature at 212 degrees. So it boils at that temperature where water turns into steam. And as you start to lose more and more water, what's left behind is the sugar. And that allows the temperature of this whole mixture to go higher than 212. And then as it gets hotter and hotter, you start getting transformations in the sugar, and those are what those different spots mark. And another little trick, if you haven't used these kind of thermometers before, is you do want to make sure that the tip of that thermometer is submerged to get a really good reading. So occasionally I'll just tip this like that, do you see? So that that tip goes in there deeper. And that lets me get a good reading. And then we can go back to where we were. But you do want to check it periodically. And how hot are we going, Clem?
240, so it's almost there.
And this can happen pretty quickly. So you do want to stay near, and you also don't want some giant sugar explosion on your stove.
We're almost there. So this is like the look. This is when it starts to look like bubbly, almost like it's going to bubble over. And that is the look. Yeah.
So how did you learn how to do this, Clem?
Just myself.
Yourself?
Yeah.
So instead of watching In Air's Kitchen, you can also just learn by yourself, I guess.
There's a question.
Yes.
So it says, if there is time at the end, can Air talk a bit about how to store / maintain our leftover sourdough?
Well, it's almost like I asked the person to ask that question. Thank you, Vi. Yeah, we'll spend a little bit of time on it. It's one of the things I wanted to talk about. And we're going to start doing some recipes to show you what to do with some of the leftover starter that you're not turning into bread.
I'm just going to turn on the mixer at slow so that it's mixing.
I'm going to get out of your way.
Then I'll pour this hot mixture.
So she's got the mixer moving right now. And then she's pouring the hot liquid into.
Gradually.
So this technique is also something called a boiled frosting. One of my favorite kinds of frosting. And we're thinking we're gonna have so much fluff now that we should make a cake. And Violet's birthday's coming up, so I think we might put some of this to use for cake frosting.
And then that is going to go on high for about 5 minutes. So.
Nice job, Clemmy.
Yeah, and then just leave it.
And you want to make sure you don't overheat that, because if you overheat it, it'll become crunchy little pieces of candy.
Yeah.
So, cool. So we're just going to wait a few minutes?
Yeah,
You watch the clock?
5 minutes.
All right. Cuckoo's going to go cuckoo.
And I made a batch for Violet frosting for her birthday, and this would be the time when I'd add in food coloring. Or I assume if you were using cornstarch and you wanted to add like a flavoring, like vanilla flavoring, you'd probably do that now. But
So this is going to be like fluff, but it has this beautiful honey taste to it. And I think I could probably just show an example. So Clementine was testing this recipe last night to get ready for the show. And I was saying we're probably going to use some of this for frosting for Violet's cake. And so Violet wanted purple frosting with violets on top of it. And so Clementine made some of this fluff with a little bit of food coloring. And it came out this beautiful violet color. Do you want a little bite? Here you go.
and the food coloring would be, I added it in like right now, but it's
Thumbs up? 2 thumbs up? Alright, so while that's going, there's a little bit of noise, but I hope you guys can hear me, and I'll talk a little bit about sourdough starters. So, I've got mine labeled because I get confused really quickly. We've had a lot of them going with the show. I wouldn't normally have a lot going, but I was trying to test things and make sure that different flours would work and different holding temperatures would work and stuff like that. The good news for everybody is that Richard's method is super, super stable. Shoot, what is it?
Question. If we don't have a thermometer, how do we check?
Question, if we don't have a thermometer, how do we check? There are methods for candy making without thermometers, but I don't feel confident enough in them to tell you how. I would say get a thermometer for this one. Is that getting close?
yeah,
Still going?
it's been 1 minute.
Okay. All right. Wow, it's looking like fluff in there. Okay, so just talking a little bit about the starters. So I have a few different examples here. And I'll just walk through what's going on with these. So this starter right here, that one's labeled 420. And this is the starter that we made together. last Monday. So this is a week old now, and I'm leaving it in a jar. I could leave it in a bowl. Somebody asked that question, is it okay to leave it in a metal bowl? It'd be fine. You can see that this is drying out a little bit on the top. It's not super dried out, but it's a little bit dried out. I could go and put a clean spoon in there and just mix it around a little bit. But this starter, it should be really happy right now and ready to go. And in fact, I think I'm going to refresh some of this tonight and make some bread tomorrow. So this is ready to use. It's in good shape. I have another starter here. This one is a little older because when we were doing that show, I wanted to get one that was a few days ahead of time so I could have some examples to share with you guys. If you remember that on Monday last week, if you watched that show, I was showing you the brand new starter and I was showing you one that was a couple days old. Now, I'm going to, this has the same thing. It's in a bigger jar because I've used less of it. It also has a little bit of a cakey top on it. I'm going to use a fresh spoon because if I use the same spoon for both these, they'll both become the same thing. Right now I want to keep them distinct. And I'm just mixing all that in a little bit. And I'm not fussy about this. I may do that, once every day. I might miss a day. It's going to be pretty stable. And this is in great shape. It smells really great. They both do. And it's probably going to taste a little sour. It's like lemony, like tart. And it smells really nice. And the mixer's getting louder and louder, I think. Is it just about ready there, Clem?
Yeah.
Oh, the cuckoo is cuckooing.
Yeah, there you go. Just waiting for that.
All right, wow. Well, come over here. We'll show that when it's up because you can see how big it's gotten. It's gotten huge.
Yeah, so there's a lot of fluff in just 3 egg whites, so yeah, a lot of fluff.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Those
It almost fills up the whole mixer, so yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of fluff.
And we already have fluff from last night.
As we were preparing for this show today, we ran out of peanut butter. So we're going to have to find a way to get some more peanut butter, I think, before we can use up all the fluff.
Yum. Here,
All right,
I've got
you got
a
that?
spatula. It's like a creamy texture, sort of.
Ooh, it's beautiful, Clemmy. Really yummy. So, you can make fluffernutters with this. It's a great choice. Especially if you're making bread at home, you've got a lot of beautiful bread to use. Nice way to use some whole wheat sourdough bread. You can also use this as a frosting for a cake. Works really well for that. This would be a fun whoopie pie filling too. So if you want to make whoopie pies with this, maybe we'll do that later this week. You think we should sneak some whoopie pies in?
Sure.
You can do whoopie pies and popcorn on Thursday if you guys want to. What do you think?
Yeah.
This would work great for that. This is a little different than the frosting we use at Clover, but it'd be really delicious. So you can use it for those kinds of things. You also may find some of it just disappearing from your fridge if you have kids, but it is a fun treat. And I wanted to get back to the sourdough starter. Thank you so much, Clementine. That's awesome. I'm sure people are going to be making that home. And as we get pictures and stuff, we'll share them. So this is the one we made. This is the one we made together last Monday. This is the one I made the Saturday before. They're bubbling. I just mixed them. They've got some bubbles in there. They're going to be sort of goopy. They're not going to be very doughy right now. Even though when we started out, they seemed more dry than this. But there's a lot of the wheat has been digested at this point by the bacteria, and these are still going to be really active. And I've been playing around with Richard with this method. I'm gonna scooch by here, sorry. And this is like all my refuse. So this is basically the same thing, but these are a bunch of smaller ones that I had extra and I just threw into this jar. So this is a mixture of a bunch of different batches. And it's also ready to go. I'm sure I could refresh this. So any of these would be ready to make some bread for me tomorrow. And you can just keep these at room temperature. You can just keep these in your kitchen. Richard's told me that he's had these for 1.5 years in his kitchen, and he's made things with them. If you want to save it, one of the methods I've heard is that you and it's got a very yeasty smell, and I don't really know why it works so well, but early on, when I refreshed this, it was way more powerful than any other starter. And even when we did the bread on Friday last week, I did an experiment. I refreshed this guy and that one, and I also refreshed this dry one, and it worked as well as the others. So I don't have enough experience with this yet to say exactly, to give you great direction on it, but if you want to play around with this crumbly, dried out starter, feel free to. All I've done is just left it out, and I have a lid, but I'm sort of leaving that open. I'm not covering it all the way. And it's drying out, and what I would do with this then is I just mix that with water until it's dissolved, and then add that with the flours to do the refresh.
Question.
Yeah.
So, how long does the Fluff store?
Yeah.
And where do you store it?
And where to store it?
Yeah.
All right, that is a great question. So, question: how long does Fluff store, and where should we store it? Refrigerator, and I don't really know how long it stores. I would guess a very long time because it's sugar, but I don't know yet. I mean, I think we'll probably keep an eye on it and smell it and taste it. But it's probably all be gone before it goes bad. I would venture to guess that it'll hold in the refrigerator for at least 2 weeks, if not longer than that. Right now we don't. We have some you made last week, right?
Yeah.
It's about a week old. It's perfect. Any other questions there, Violet?
No.
So I'm gonna set these guys back here. Tomorrow we're doing grits. I thought what I will do this week is I'll show you guys some things that you can do with your leftover dough, and one of my favorite things, the leftover starter. So you can use that starter, you can keep refreshing it and making bread with it, but when you refresh it, you only need 20 grams, and we have a lot more than 20 grams there. But fear not, unlike most traditional starters where you get the starter going and you keep throwing stuff out, we're not going to throw anything out. We've got really great uses for that excess. And one of my favorite uses is pancakes, so we'll make some pancakes with that starter, and it'll be delicious and really fun. We've been doing that. We've been eating pancakes more than we usually would because we're baking so much bread. We have all this starter around, but the kids have been loving it. You could also make waffles. There are other things we can make with that as well, and we might explore some of those. We can make, we've made naan with it. We've made flour tortillas. We've made English muffins. So we can find, we've made like an injera wrap, which Richard was really excited about. So some different kinds of things we can make, and we'll explore some of those in the future. So tomorrow we have cheesy grits, and maybe we'll make pancakes as well. Wednesday we're gonna make our own pasta at home, and we're gonna make pesto as well. And on Thursday, I think we're going to do popcorn, and it sounds like maybe we'll try whoopie pies as well. Friday, we're off this week because it's Violet's birthday. But thank you for joining us. We're here at 4 p.m. every day.